Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War, which hosts Bang and Dang, and continuing on with the year of 1865, and continuing on with the old rebels' downfall even further into just wow. And it's going to continue on this episode with, we've already established last week, Fort Fisher got taken away, which was a major port, and guess what? The Confederates' very, very last port is getting taken away in this episode, and they no longer have shipping routes or anything on the Atlantic Ocean from here on out.
yep, it's over.
Coming up today, we got the Battle of Aiken, which is part of the Carolinas campaign. Then we go to Florida, literally the most pointless battle of the war, probably at Fort Myers. And then we head to Wilmington, which is part of a whole new expedition. Wilmington, which was part of the operations against Fort Fisher and Wilmington, which obviously Fort Fisher was the first, and now Wilmington's the next. They're going to occupy the city. And before we get to those, go check out our YouTube at Bang Dang Network. Give us a subscription. Coming up soon, actually, is our brand new YouTube exclusive show called Bang and Dang Debate, where we take random topics that are decided right before the show starts and we'll debate them like regular, normal folk do. It's going to be a much more laid back, maybe, kind of show than this, not sticking to the script, so to speak. It's going to be off the cuff and could go in more than one places than the topic suggests as well. So if you guys are interested in that and hearing us a little bit more color, so to speak, go check us out on YouTube. If you're not subscribed already, give us a subscription. We're hoping to launch that in the beginning of October sometime, and it's going to be YouTube exclusive, so that's the only place you can get that. If you're listening on YouTube, go check us out on Spotify, Apple. Give us a subscribe or a review, share us with your friends, and answer that Spotify question for all you Spotify users. Coming up first, Battle of Aiken, February 11th, 1865. Like I said, part of the Carolinas campaign. We got the Union, headed by Hugh Judson Kilpatrick, facing off against the Confederates, headed by Major General Joseph Wheeler. Two major generals here. Before the battle, February 1st, General Sherman began his invasion of South Carolina. During the campaign, he ordered Hugh Judson Kilpatrick and his cavalry corps from the 5th U.S. Cavalry to march through South Carolina. By February 5th, he crossed into Aiken County, where he would engage in battle with Wheeler's cavalry corps. Wheeler then attacked Kilpatrick, who expected little resistance, despite having orders not to pursue Kilpatrick's cavalry. So he attacked him anyways.
Might as well. Well, Wheeler, he moved to defend the city of Augusta from the Union Army. His army was stationed at 204 Park Avenue, between Benjamin Franklin Cheatham and James Argall Smith's forces. The Aiken Home Guard and the Cavalry Corps were under Wheeler's command. He planned to defeat Kilpatrick by forming his cavalry into a V-shaped formation, ducks fly together, with skirmishers deployed above it. When Kilpatrick charged the skirmishers, they would retreat into the center of the V. Once Kilpatrick entered the formation, the tips of the V would collapse, thus encircling Kilpatrick.
So there's a V, like the opening is towards Kilpatrick, not like the point. Obviously, that would be retarded.
Right. February 11th.
Pretty solid strategy, but I mean, I don't know about that.
Right. 9 a.m., February 11th, the battle began.
All right. Well, Wheeler's plan was prevented from coming to fruition due to one single Confederate soldier who prematurely fired their gun.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Fucking Jones.
Right.
That resulted in Wheeler ordering all of his soldiers to attack the Union forces. He had no choice. The armies engaged in hand-to-hand combat throughout the town. Imagine that, just soldiers running throughout the town. Damn. Wow. Cool. During the fighting, it was reported that a Confederate soldier ran up to Kilpatrick and attacked the general with his pistol. However, the pistol did not fire. Well, after Kilpatrick was defeated, he retreated back to his defenses at Montmorency. For the rest of the day, the Confederates and Union soldiers skirmished.
Right. This continued until two commanders signed a truce and agreed to collect the bodies.
Like, all right, man, we're just killing people for nothing.
All right. Later, on February 13th, Kilpatrick retreated and rejoined Sherman.
All right.
Despite this, Kilpatrick declared himself victorious. In the aftermath of the battle, Wheeler's decision to attack Kilpatrick left the Edisto River and, in turn, Columbia very, very vulnerable.
Can't be leaving Columbia vulnerable. According to General Kilpatrick, he had killed 31. His people had killed 31 Confederates, wounded 160, and captured 60.
Fantastic.
This would result in the Confederates taking 251 casualties.
Okay.
However, General Wheeler states that he had suffered 50 casualties and that he had killed 53 Union soldiers, wounded 270, and captured 172. This totals to 495 Union casualties.
Oh.
Okay. Who are you going to believe?
Right, neither. To commemorate this very battle, a granite monument erected at intersection of Richland Avenue and Chesterfield Street.
Winchester-Sinfieldville, Iowa.
Right. Dr. Pepper.
Boo Ridley's apple juice.
The people of the country reenact the battle annually on rural land located several miles away from the area where the battle was actually fought.
Okay.
According to the Southern Cultures Journal, the residents of the city possibly reenact this battle as an attempt to score a symbolic blow against a hated enemy of their ancestors, and perhaps against what they see as their enemy's modern counterparts. The champions of political correctness in general and historical revisionism, and beyond those, a Leviathan bureaucratic state which intervenes in their lives in unwanted as well as unwelcome.
So it's the bunch of Confederate ancestors trying to be like, we actually won this battle, even though the Union claimed it.
Right.
Which we just seen who won the battle, guys. So you don't need to reenact.
Right.
Well, the very first reenactment of the battle happened in 1965.
Oh,
It was organized by
100 years later.
John A. May and Herman Boland.
Good job,
Both of these men
Herman.
were descendants of Confederate veterans, I would assume. According to the Southern Cultures Journal, the tradition of reenacting the battle had become suspect,
Oh, jeez.
resulting in the people of the town trying to hold on to their southernness by defending the practice. What, so now you're not allowed to reenact battles anymore?
Man.
In 2005, Christopher Forbes and with Michael G. Hennessy directed and co-wrote The Battle of Aiken, a film about this battle. Damn, we
Really?
got a whole film about it, huh?
There's a movie?
How the hell do they get a whole film about what we just went through?
Moving on. Battle of Fort Myers. We're going to Florida. 20th of February, 1865, when this battle was fought in Lee County, Florida.
Florida,
This is a very small engagement,
Florida.
and it's also known as the southernmost land battle of the Civil War.
Good for you, land battles.
Old Fort Myers is a shitty of a city, and it had been abandoned in 1858 after the Third Seminole War, and it was reoccupied by the Union soldiers in December of
Damn, so
1863.
nobody lived in the city for a whole 5 years?
Well, Union commanders planned to send cavalry in the area north of the Caloosahatchee River to confiscate livestock from the area cattle ranches, thereby preventing shipment to beef.
Who's got the beef?
Thereby preventing shipment of beef to Confederate Army of Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah, can't be allowing them to have no beef now.
1865, it was estimated that there was more than 4,000 head of cattle had been taken from Florida cattlemen by the Union cavalry from similar raids.
All right, well, sucks to be them.
All right, what are you going to
Fort Myers was used as a refugee center for escaped slaves and Union sympathizers
Fantastic.
who were being persecuted by the secessionists.
What are you going to do?
Unionists had their homes burnt down and were driven off their farms. At one period, during the federal reoccupation, more than 400 people crowded into the fort's grounds.
Oh.
The fort was garrisoned primarily by the 2nd Florida Cavalry, made up mostly of refugees who had enlisted.
Okay.
A recently detached company of the 110th New York Volunteer Infantry, and a company of the 2nd United States Color Infantry, both from Fort Zachary Taylor in Key West.
Fantastic. Rebel leaders in South Florida petitioned the Confederate government to organize the 1st Battalion of Special Cavalry, known as the Cow Cavalry, with the sole purpose of stopping the Union raids. Makes sense. This cattle guard battalion, commanded by Colonel C.J. Munnerlin, was made up of cattlemen who were exempt from the regular Confederate Army. Why? Because they're cattlemen?
Maybe.
Man, somebody got to tend the livestock. Among them, guess who? You guessed it. Old Captain Francis A. Hendry.
Hey, Francis, where you been? At the time that the Confederates planned their attack, the fort was particularly weakened. There were only about 250 men in Fort Myers, and they were short on weapons and ammo.
Oh.
On top of that, the troops from the 2nd United States Colored Infantry were still fatigued after returning only 2 days prior, following sustained skirmishing with the enemy.
That's plenty of days' rest.
Right.
Early February 1865, Captain Hendry's company of the Cattle Guard Battalion was deployed at Fort Meade. They were ordered to attack Fort Myers because it was learned that the fort might soon be abandoned. 3 companies between 275 and 400 men and one 12-pounder artillery piece arrived at Old Fort Thompson, which is in LaBelle, Florida. They did that on the 19th of February, 1865. They marched down the river and camped near Billy's Creek.
Billy?
Damn, Billy's going to be pissed. It's good fishing right there. The next morning, they surprised several black Union soldiers on picket duty and shot or captured them as they tried to flee.
I mean, yeah. The firing had alerted the fort, so the Confederates fired a warning shot from their cannon, followed by a messenger demanding the Union troops surrender.
Oh, wow.
The fort's commanding officer, Captain James Doyle, sent back a refusal. He says, "Your demand for an unconditional surrender has been received. I respectfully decline. I have enough force to maintain my position and will fight you to the last."
Which he didn't.
Doyle then wheeled his own 2 cannons outside the fort. He said, "Try me.
Look at this bitch.
Try me."
Wow. Well, guess what? Battle began with black Union soldiers firing their artillery and the white Union cavalrymen firing their carbines. Throughout that very day, both sides continued sporadic firing, which finally ceased at dark. 1 black Federal soldier had been killed in the skirmishing. The next morning, the Cattle Guard Battalion returned to Fort Meade. Even though the attack had been repelled, Fort Myers was abandoned by its garrison in early March.
Jeez. So, like I said,
was a
a
waste.
needless,
Right.
nothing to do battle. For what?
They were leaving regardless,
For what? Jeez.
just to say that.
Well, I mean, just so to say that they defended the fort. Like, no, and then we're going to leave anyways. Joke's on you. It's going to lead us to our last battle of the episode with the Battle of Wilmington, which was fought February 11th through the 22nd, 1865, mostly outside the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, between the opposing Union and Confederate departments of North Carolina.
Okay, fantastic.
After the fall of Fort Fisher, the port city of Wilmington was sealed to any further blockade runners. Confederates had no remaining major ports along the Atlantic seaboard. Confederate forces evacuated the other defensive works near the mouth of the Cape Fear River. They were forced to disable and abandon the heavy artillery since they lacked the means to move them upriver.
What a waste.
Yep.
What a waste. They wasted so many good artillery pieces. Sickening. While the old Rebs' defeat at Fort Fisher the previous month affected morale somewhat and then led to an increase in desertion, the remaining soldiers also reported that morale remained high.
Yep, right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
It's General Braxton Bragg. He commanded the defense of Wilmington. His field
You
forces.
did so well, Bragg.
Right. His field forces consisted of General Robert Hoke's division from the Army of Northern Virginia. And he had some heavy artillery men and a home guard.
Yeah, oh my God.
Hoke, he commanded 3 of his brigades on the east side of the Cape Fear River, along Sugarloaf north of Fort Fisher. Hoke's 4th Brigade occupied Fort Anderson on the west side of the river.
It did indeed.
Anybody in Wilmington, North Carolina, what is Sugarloaf North?
Oh, along Sugarloaf north of the Fort Fisher.
Either way, what is Sugarloaf?
Sugarloaf is it's like an area. Well, Bragg remained in Wilmington in order to remove a stockpile of government stores and also to prevent the Union forces on the coast from reinforcing Major General William T. Sherman's army. Union General-in-Chief U.S. Grant, United States Grant, or Ulysses S. Grant, whatever one you want to call him. He wanted to use Wilmington as a base for an advance to Goldsboro, North Carolina. Rail lines from the coast to Goldsboro could be used to resupply William T. Sherman's armies, which were then moving, like we know already, through the Carolinas.
Right.
In February 1865, the Union 23rd Corps arrived to reinforce the Fort Fisher Expeditionary Corps, commanded by Major General Alfred H. Terry. And then Major General John Schofield took command of the combined force and started moving against the city in mid-February.
Uh-oh, here we go. Well, the Battle of Wilmington consisted of 3 smaller engagements along the Cape Fear River.
Sure did.
A rebel division under Major General Robert Hoke occupied Sugarloaf Line north of Fort Fisher.
Anybody out there know what Sugar Line North is?
Right.
Sugarloaf Line?
11th of February, Schofield attacked Hoke's Sugarloaf Line with Alfred Terry's Corps. So put some water on that, it'll melt.
Right. What's a sugarloaf, though? Is it bread?
I don't fucking know. The engagement started in the morning with the bombardment by Union gunboats along the Atlantic side of the fortifications.
Yeah, all those ships, if you guys remember from 2nd Fort Fisher, there was like 60 of them. They're all here, too. So.
Right. 2/4 of an hour later, Terry started his advance, but his left wing was hindered by a swamp located along the river.
2/4 of an hour. All right. By late afternoon, Schofield and Terry had overrun the Confederate skirmish line, but then concluded that the main Confederate works were too strong to be captured by frontal assault.
Uh-oh.
Schofield gotta get him from the. Want me to hit that from the back? Schofield decided that he had to capture Wilmington from the west side of the river. Next, Major General Jacob Cox's 3rd Division, 23rd Corps, was ferried to the west bank of the Cape Fear River to deal with Fort Anderson, which was the main fortress guarding Wilmington.
Here we go, Fort Anderson, you sons of bitches. Rear Admiral David Porter's gunboats sailed up the river and shelled Fort Anderson, silencing all 12 guns.
Damn.
Under the direction of Lieutenant Commander William B. Cushing, the Federal Navy constructed a Quaker, or a fake, monitor that tricks the old Rebs into detonating their water mines to make way for Porter's gunboats.
Oh, now we don't call them torpedoes no more?
Right. Both Cushing and Porter were highly pleased with the success of the ploy. However, later, Confederate reports claimed the garrison was expecting a dummy boat, and they were prepared.
Oh, but they still set off their torpedoes.
Right. Meanwhile, Cox, supported by General Adelbert Ames' division, advanced up the west bank towards the fort.
All right. Well, Cox then sent the brigades of Colonel Thomas Henderson and Colonel Orlando Moore against the garrison itself, while Brigadier General John Casement and Colonel Oscar Sturrell marched through the swamps around the Confederate flank. Casement and Sturrell encountered Confederate cavalry and pushed it back after a short fight. Fort's commander, General Johnson Hagood, sensed the trap and received permission from General Hoke to pull back to a defensive line along the town creek to the north.
Shit.
Just as Hagood's troops began their retreat, Henderson's brigade attacked, thus taking the fort rather easily along with a few prisoners.
Well, fantastic. Look at that shit. Well, Cox, he pursued Hagood from Fort Anderson, and on February 19th caught up to the Town Creek line while Hoke's division retreated to a position which was 3 miles south of Wilmington, across the river from Hagood's force. Terry, he followed Hoke cautiously, worried about being surprised by an ambush or by a flank attack from its right. By this time, Hoke actually outnumbered Terry, as Ames' division was now on the west bank with Cox. Therefore, Ames was ferried back across again as Terry and Porter's fleet started clearing the river of torpedoes.
That's a bunch of people on the riverbank with Cox.
A bunch of ferries. Terry restarted his advance the next day, encountering Hoke's new lines in the afternoon. Once he was convinced that Hoke planned to remain where he was, Terry ordered the Union troops to start building entrenchments while Union gunboats tested the Confederate batteries along the riverbank. This was just west of Hoke's division. Here we go.
Well, Hagood had burned the only bridge across Town Creek to slow down Cox and entrenched on the north side of the river. Cox was eager to attempt his encircling plan that, due to Hagood's retreat at Fort Anderson, Federals had been unable to complete. The creek was not fordable, so February 20th, and it's not a creek. Deeper creeks, jeez. February 20th, Cox's troops found a single flat-bottom boat in the river and used it to ferry 3 brigades across the creek while the 4th Brigade skirmished with Hagood as a diversion.
Fantastic.
Jeez. How long did that take? Hagood discovered the flanking movement and decided, since his position was now untenable, to retreat back to Wilmington.
Right, might as well.
He then left 2 regiments to cover his retreat.
Fantastic. The old Federal allies then waded through the swamp. They attacked the Confederate flank, routing the 2 regiments.
Oh, wow.
And taking 375 prisoners along with 2 pieces of artillery. Fantastic. The very next day, Cox rebuilt the destroyed bridge. Schofield's artillery crossed, and along with Porter's gunboats, both were within range of the city itself. Well, old General Bragg, he saw the hopelessness of the situation, and he ordered the city abandoned. February 21st, 1865, Cox's division, guess what? They're continuing on marching toward the city, but delayed by the destroyed bridges across the Brunswick River and by Confederate cavalry. While Hoke's division continued to hold off Terry's command.
All right. Well, Bragg then used the 21st of February to evacuate Union prisoners located there. While evacuating anything of a military value, he also ordered bales of cotton and tobacco burned so they would not fall into Union hands, along with storehouses, foundries, shipyards, and ships. Jeez. Bragg retreated with his forces at 1 a.m. on the 22nd. Cox's corps entered the city after 8 a.m., with Terry following just about an hour later.
Wow, fucking Bragg, you piece of shit. The Battle of Wilmington closed the last major port of the Confederate States on the Atlantic coast. Wilmington had served as a major port for blockade runners carrying tobacco, cotton, and other goods to places such as Great Britain, the Bahamas, and Bermuda. Much of the supplies for
Great Britain,
right.
Bahamas, Bermuda, right?
Much of the supplies for the Army of Northern Virginia also came through Wilmington.
Yeah.
So now that the port closed, the old Federales blockade was complete. The old Rebs were unable to find another port along the Atlantic seaboard to replace Wilmington. Sorry, boys. Bragg, he came under severe criticism from the press for the Confederate defeat in Wilmington campaign.
Yeah, well.
Can't believe this is the first time.
Right. Well, several members of the Confederate Congress also directed criticism towards Confederate President Jefferson and called for his resignation. That's all falling apart now, boys.
Yep.
Bragg's forces from Wilmington retreated towards Goldsboro, North Carolina, where united with other Confederate forces commanded by General Joseph Johnston.
Hey, look at that. Where's this guy been?
Well, right. The capture of Wilmington gave Sherman's forces a base of supply and a supply route to the sea.
Fantastic.
Schofield was forced to spend some time repairing the damage caused by the Confederates to the rail lines near the city. I think he'll take it.
Right.
He was also forced to use supplies earmarked for Sherman to help paroled prisoners sent to Wilmington.
What can you do?
Civilians still living in the city.
Right.
What are you going to do? Schofield's forces were reorganized into the Army of Ohio, and from Wilmington he marched inland to join with Sherman's forces near Fayette.
Closing in on you, old Robert E. Lee.
Yep. It's over. Done. Motherfuckers are done.
Finito.
Done. Just end it, guys. Just give up.
Right.
Just give up.
All right. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Bad.
Well, coming up next week, we got the Battle of Waynesboro, Virginia, which, if I'm not mistaken, it was the final battle for Confederate Lieutenant General Jubu Early, whose force was destroyed.
It's basically gone now anyway.
It was a total and complete victory for George Armstrong Custer as well. So
Poor guy. At least you get a victory here and there until his demise.
right.
Poor guy.
Yeah, what are you going to do? And then we'll have the Battle of Natural Bridge in Florida, probably the Battle of Wise Fork, and maybe even most likely the Battle of Monroe's Crossroads. 2 North Carolina, Virginia, and a Florida one over there. We got some North Carolinas coming up. That's how we do it in North Carolina. Yep. That's what we got coming up on this stuff.
Yeah. End of the war.
Yeah, end of the war. We're just winding down here now, folks. Getting while we get. Yeah. Go check out our YouTube so you guys can check out our new debate show we got coming up only on YouTube. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, go head out to @BangDang Network. Give us a subscription and find us over there. That's where all of our other podcasts are conglomerated as well. So
They are.
we'll see you there. And like I said, share us with your fans, answer a Spotify question, and we'll be back next week for a few more battles while we wind this absolutely nonsense, dragged out war.
Yeah, for the
even
past
more.
3 years.
So we'll see you then. We're the Month of Michigan.
Dang.